Hi.
Hi.
Not going to say good morning or good night or good afternoon or any of those things, but thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you for our beautiful listeners.
So, today we are going to talk about the diet before the diet. Um, and what I mean by that is what you need to do before you begin a weight loss journey or a fat loss phase, whatever you want to call it, a diet, a cut, all mean the same thing.
Mhm.
So, and I also have to mention I am extremely fuzzy because I didn't realize that my sweatshirt was one of those that leaves all the fuzz. So if anybody's looking at me like, wow, put on a clean shirt,
Mind
it
your business.
is. I had no idea it was going to do that, and I do not have a lint roller. So I'm stuck like this all day, which is great.
I'll take you in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. So, what a lot of people do is they wake up one day and they realize, okay, I've had enough. I want to lose some weight. And they're like, all right, gonna go on a diet. And that normally doesn't work out too well, right? The vast majority of diets fail and you give up and you just kind of go back to where you were, right? So this is the missing piece. One of the
And that is also why there's misconceptions about people or when they're starting a fitness journey because they um I lost my train of thought. Oh, um I lost it.
it came back and it went away.
Mhm,
Okay, if it comes back, just interrupt.
mhm.
Um, so this is one of the other, actually, why don't we kind of outline it and that could be another episode. The two missing pieces I think that people that make diets unsuccessful is this pre-diet phase that we're going to talk about today, and then also the post-diet phase.
Mhm.
So people don't do that. They're just either on a diet or not, and they don't give thought to these things. And I think these are game changers.
And this reminded me of the thought I lost, which was the misconception is that people get confused that when we say this eating or this diet, this mindset, fitness is a lifestyle, wellness is a lifestyle, right? Because the whole point is that not that you can't just fall off your diet, but you have to stick with it in order to see results. And that's why we want to say to lifestyle, not in a way to scare people into commitment or something, but that it truly works that way. The more that you do this, the more results that you'll see.
Right. And it's the healthy habits that are the lifestyle. The diet itself is temporary. Nobody should be in a diet long term. Okay? We're not meant to that's not how we function optimally as humans, right? In
Mm-mm.
a constant state of restriction. It shouldn't be like that.
No.
Diets are a temporary means to an end. Um, so let's just get started with this pre-diet phase. What does that even mean? The first part of that is making sure you have all those healthy habits in place. Because if you don't have them in place to begin with, your diet is not going to be successful.
No. We have to prepare ourselves. And if we fail to prepare, we prepare to fail.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure that we are getting enough water, getting
Mhm.
enough sleep, doing some movement every day, getting our steps in, and eating in a regular pattern, meaning however many meals a day you eat, whether it's three, four, or five, but that's consistent throughout your week. And those are the things that you need to have in place before you even think about dieting.
And like on a basic level, anyone I feel like can understand that our bodies have a certain rhythm to them, to, idiosyncratically or generally biologically speaking. We have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to go to the bathroom. Our body, first of all, has a rhythm. And then we as people in the lifestyle that we live, our body adjusts to our rhythm, so long, it's a healthy one and everything. But it reminds me of when I started my bodybuilding phase and competition, I had to do like 2 to 3 months of pre diet for that, which just meant getting my body into the rhythm of eating the amount of meals and the amount of calories I should be putting in my body. Because when I started my bodybuilding phase, and this can be applied to any kind of lifestyle shift, change, diet. For me, it was the bodybuilding. And I definitely, so my bodybuilding plan, my pre diet and during bodybuilding was 6 meals a day. I was definitely not eating 6 meals a day before the pre diet or the bodybuilding. So that was a change to get my metabolism acclimated to the new rhythm that I will be putting into my body. And so, putting your body into this process of the same amount of meals, same amount of food, and the movement that you're doing, that's going to produce an outcome that should be in line with your goals based on the plan that you're doing for whatever it is that you're doing. And so it made a lot of sense because when you're explained in the sense that your body is a machine, like you have to put gas in a machine, and when it's no gas, it's can't, move it. It doesn't go. So the same thing like a human on a very basic level is we don't got any energy, any food in us, any calories, we don't have any energy to output. And so that is a really important equation, whatever it is, and as a human in general, because whether you're bodybuilding on a diet or not, we need food and we need those calories. But the point of the pre diet is so important because that rhythm that your body gets into and you stick with it is going to prove fruitful because the balance is what you need.
Right. And another thing that people just don't realize is that being in a deficit is stressful. It's stressful on the body
Mm-hmm.
because, like you said, we're an engine and we're not running with a full tank. Okay. So that means everything is going to be affected.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're already run down and you're already not getting good sleep and you're already dehydrated and you know what I mean, all these things, and you're already having a hard time managing your time and planning your meals, adding a deficit on top of that is just you're asking for everything to come tumbling down.
It's like you are pushing the ball up the hill with no end in sight because you have to kind of dig yourself out of the hole. And while it's maybe not linear and things are gonna you know fall into place as they do for you, but you have to start off as best as you can. Not that you shouldn't start, but healthy habits are going to be really important to be put in place when you're taking these changes in your diet because it makes a difference on your body.
Right. And that's why I really like to encourage people to track before they ever start a diet because you need you need to learn how to do it, especially if you're new to tracking and new to macros. You need to learn how to do it first.
Mhm.
So, wouldn't you rather learn how to do it with plenty of food around?
Yes.
No,
And
no
when you're eating
or anything.
things that you enjoy and that you're not like picking apart for macros, because I feel like as a human, when you see the bigger picture or when you start off bigger and then ship things down from there, I feel like typically it's easier to build upon that because you already have the foundation set.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is too, if we can't, this is huge. If you can't be adherent and basically eating at maintenance, which is you're not gaining weight, you're not losing weight, but you're just eating what you normally eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't stick to that, how do you think you're going to be able to stick to less? Because that's something I see a lot with clients. You'll have someone, they'll check in and they'll be like, I've been eating off plan and I'm going over my macros and whatever, and this isn't working and I'm not losing weight. Can we cut my macros? And I'm like, no. Because if you can't follow this, you definitely can't follow that. You
Yes. And
know?
if you're just going ahead and following that, which is less, where can you go from there?
Right. Yeah. So you have to be able to just start where you're at and get all of these habits into place first.
Because
Then,
again, when you're starting here and then you quit because you don't have results or you can't keep up with it because it's unrealistic, then you get frustrated with fitness or something where, and
Mhm.
not that you should be frustrated with yourself or anything, but just that there are alternative ways to reach your goals if you're struggling or not having, not wanting to digest the information that like it really will help you out if you don't just minimize your food to start to
Right.
change that.
Because even if someone doesn't want to continue tracking into their deficit, we need to at least know what you're starting at, you know? It
Mm-hmm.
just it's brings a level of awareness that you would never be able to have otherwise. Because a lot of people, like, think about it for a second. When you've ever asked someone like, "Oh, what did you have for dinner last night?" A lot of people have to think about that. They would have to be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Wait, what did I?" You know what I mean? So that's how like we end up consuming things and not even realizing it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's all those bites, licks, and tastes. And I had a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And you don't remember these things because they were incidental and they were, you know, just a handful or something like that. And it's not until you start keeping track of those things that you can see how it all adds up.
And I mean, it just inherently goes with discipline that is a form of self-love. And when I see quotes that imply when you are in control, you are doing yourself a favor. When you'd say things like, "Oh, I don't care," or "whenever it happens," or "tomorrow," because tomorrow never happens, um, you know, those things they they need to you have to get over those things in order to reach our goals.
Yeah. It's like those it's the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Like the I don't have time and the I'm not good at this or I can't do this. I'm not that kind of person. Th those are all stories. They're all stories. And I'm not saying that some people are busier than aren't busier than others. Absolutely, that is the case, you know. We definitely do not have the same 24 hours in the day.
No.
There's 24 hours in a day, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody's 24 hours looks drastically different.
Mm-hmm.
So you can legitimately be one of the busiest people on earth, but that doesn't mean that you can't do this much better,
Mm-hmm. And
you know?
when you're in control, or when you are just mindful of what you're eating or what you're putting your body through, when you know those things about yourself, you have more knowledge to work with and to be able to navigate your surroundings better, whether that be maintaining a healthy lifestyle, balance in the gym, balance with your family. They're achievable, but you have to be in control and be active in, scheduling and in your day to day preparation,
So in your pre-prep diet, how long did that phase last?
I want to say yeah, so it started in January, like the second week of January
Hmm.
to sometime in mid-April. And that was, I remember it was 1950 calories, so just under 1,000 calories. And it was all like beef and bison, some fish, blueberries, a banana,
The
avocado.
pre-prep.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes. And
You
then,
weren't in
so
prep yet.
no, so this is
Okay.
just like the pre-prep, getting my body used to like 2,000 calories
Mhm.
because when I had my call with my coach, it was like, am I eating 2,000 calories all the time? Certainly more than that sometimes, and sometimes maybe not. So we started at like right under 2,000 and then was just whole food, fruits and veggies and meat, of course. And then um when we moved into like mid-April, we did a cut and I think it went from like 1950. It went like 200 calories cut or something like that
Mhm.
for April to like July, and then I kind of stayed there and I competed in November. So I think I was at like 1695 calories like in the months before the competition.
Mm.
And it really, I kind of was eating the same thing every day, like to a T almost, but then I would veer off from it, but I would try to like eat the same foods for like when we were working at the smoothie shop. Um, I like my breakfast would be like avocado, blueberries, banana, eggs, and so I would try to, use egg whites as the base for the smoothie, throw avocado, throw blueberries in there, scoop of protein for the protein, of course. So I would be able to change it in ways, and I would do different proteins. I remember one time I went to the market and I just got like ground venison because I didn't want to have like beef
Mm,
anymore, bison. So I would, try different proteins and stuff. But I really didn't have, I feel like, that much change from my diet that year. Like I didn't really
yeah.
go eating that many things that
Hmm.
weren't on the diet plan, on
Yeah.
the meal plan.
But like I was asking about like the time frame because thinking about this pre-diet phase,
Mhm.
like people might be wondering, well, how long do I have to do this for? And that's going to be very individual, you know?
Very individual. Mine was 3 months, and I thought that was really a good amount of time because you do something for a week and you're like, oh my God, I can totally do this. And then
Mm.
you do it for longer and you realize that it's not that that it's hard to maintain, but that it takes work to prepare yourself. And um I feel like a week isn't enough time to see how your body responds to things and everything. So 3 months is a good time for me. My body responded well to the 6 meals and the amount of food I was eating, and I had enough energy to do my workouts and everything. So that worked out great. And but yeah, I feel like 3 months is a really good time span to get your mental and your body into the routine to be able to know what you're going to have to do during this. Because then, of course, if you're pre dieting and then you go to a deficit, it's helpful because you know what you were eating, you know what you're in, the change. And yeah, I like the 3 months. It was good for my body to adjust and be like balanced. I was eating the same thing 3 months. And then I feel like I was ready at that time to do a little bit of a cut.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's gonna it all depends on how long it's gonna take someone to get those habits established, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like if you have somebody that's already tracking and is used to that and is already, you know, kind of keeping track of all those other little variables like the steps and the water and just being consistent across the board, their pre-diet phase could be shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's someone that's starting from complete scratch, where they're not focused on any of these things,
Mm-hmm.
and it could take longer, you know?
And for reference, for my pre-diet that lasted 3 months, I was not in a I needed the pre-diet phase because I wasn't eating something. I wasn't eating in a way that would, do me a favor during my training, but I was already, training several times a week in the gym. So my body really liked that change because I was already doing all the working out, but I wasn't getting the right amount of nutrients. So you can see that there's a lot of good things that comes from that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. You brought up an excellent point because the lower our calories get in a diet, the more important it's going to be to prioritize your like carbs around your workouts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when calories are high, it really doesn't matter. Um, it just really doesn't matter.
Because it's abundant and you
Yeah,
have it in your body. You're
you
not,
have enough. Yeah.
but when you're, in a deficit training for a competition and you are on a strict amount of carbs every single day, your body is going to rely on that consumption of carbs for your workout because it's the only carbs you're getting,
Mhm.
and that's the energy that you need, obviously, to get through your workout. And so, food obviously is a science. There's so much to it, but food with working out or with lifestyle, it's just like it is a tool. It is a tool. It is so many things.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like it's almost like going back to that gas tank analogy. When you're not dieting, your tank is always full. When you
Mm-hmm.
are dieting, you only get so much. So you better make sure you fill up before you go on that little trip. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It could be that
You're
trip to
gonna
the
need
gym.
it.
Yeah. And a little bit afterwards so you can get back home.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to prioritize those carbs, before and after your workout. And then, maybe you have a little bit left to sprinkle out throughout the rest of the day. Maybe you don't. It all depends on how, on what your actual deficit looks like. But if we don't do these things up front to prepare, I mean, you want to set yourself up for success, right? You don't
Mhm.
want to have to, you want to be able to get in and get out when it comes to dieting. Nobody wants to be in a diet longer than they need to be, right? So go all in. Do it right the first time
Mhm.
and get in, get your results, and get out. And we'll talk about the get out part in another episode.
Yes.
But if you set yourself up properly with a pre-diet phase, your chances of being successful just skyrocket.
Yeah,
Most people aren't doing this.
and it reminds me, like, we can also put it this way, which is like, if how many people that don't start on the right foot get to where they want to go?
Right.
And not that, maybe not the right foot, but you know what I'm trying to say.
No, definitely. Because you think about like I think about times in my life when I have been overweight and trying to lose it and just, you know, not being successful or being successful and gaining it back and losing it again and gaining it back and just being so lost and not understanding why I was struggling so much, you know?
And can you boil that down to one of those things, like not being fully mindful, or was it something else?
It was all just not knowing everything that we know now.
Mm-hmm.
This is like 2025 is a fantastic time to get in control of your health because
Mm-hmm.
back then, what did we know? Weight Watchers,
Oh
Slim,
my God. We
like,
should we should do an episode on this probably, maybe, but I saw this thing on Instagram and it was like apparently nobody in the 70s drank water. Like nobody bought like plastic water bottles buying to your house. Like that's something that my we still do
mhm.
because you know we need water bottles. But apparently, you know, in the 70s, people weren't getting water bottles. They were, drinking tap water, which is still fine. But in school, everybody has a water bottle and a Stanley and a hydro flask. And when I was in high school, it was a Nalgene, and everybody always have
Mhm.
had a water bottle of sorts. Water has always been a thing in my lifetime, which is great because hydrate or dihydrate, right? You need water to live. But it's so funny that as the times change and like you say, it's 2025, great time to be in charge of your health. I think we maybe take some things for granted. Like everybody has water, we can get it so easily, but even something as needed and as capital as water wasn't treated the same way, what, 40 years ago as it is now.
Right.
So like that's crazy. It's so funny how in this day and age we can't stop talking about health and fitness. We can't get through that. But before it was no one we changed a lot, the fitness and health. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've come a long way. Yeah, if macros had been around back then, like enough to where people knew about it, like would have saved, oh, would have saved so much. Because if you think about it, everything is based off of it. Even if you're on a meal plan, and I know you're more of a meal plan girly when it comes to like prep and whatever. What is that meal plan based off of? Macros.
macros. Like
What's the Weight Watchers point system when you boil it down? It's an algorithm based on macros.
yes.
What is the Beachbody portion fix, where you have your little containers and you have so many protein and so many fat and so many carbs?
Mhm.
Macros.
Yes.
So it's all based on the same thing. But instead of having to use some other arbitrary number or system, macros are so easy to learn for yourself.
Hmm.
So you don't have to, kind of like do another type of diet or learn another system if you just understand what food is made out of.
Exactly, because why would you want to worry about points? And so, but I feel like when Weight Watchers came out, I don't know when, but
Decades,
decades, so like 20 years ago or so.
probably longer.
Okay, wow. Because know
Let's
them.
find out.
Let's find out.
Keep
Yeah,
talking.
so it's so crazy because when I feel like when Weight Watchers would have came out, it was a great business model and great idea to help people get healthy because it seemed like people could respond to the point system. That's what people were ready for or could respond to that they seem. So
Yeah.
like, fruits, vegetables, I don't know. I've never done Weight Watchers, but I'm pretty sure like fruits and vegetables are like nothing because some like
Mhm.
small points or maybe, but I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe they seemed that like they did like testing and they saw that instead of getting a whole fitness coach and a whole thing and knowing everything about macros and macronutrients and all this 20 years ago, let's just introduce these points to people and they'll be able to follow it easily without guidance. But I think I agree with you, Jenna, that why would we waste our time with these arbitrary systems when we can just know the food and then we learn better that way, I think,
It's
because then you actually
empowering.
know.
I want to
Yes.
empower people. I want you to understand it inside out and backwards for yourself so that you don't have to listen to somebody else. It was 1963, by the way,
Oh, wow. So they've been
and
around for a while.
they're out of business now. Um,
Oh,
just
really?
this year, they just went under. Yeah,
You
filed for
can't. Wow.
all that. Yeah. People speculate if it was, the rise of Ozempic and drugs like that. I don't know, but I think that it could have been. I don't think it was inherently bad. Okay. I'm not
No,
inherently against the point system. The
no.
problem with that is, and the same could be said for following macros. You could go down the same route. Now, it's changed a lot over the years. They did evolve, but there was a point in time where, a banana, because banana has a lot of carbs, was a lot of points compared
I
to,
see.
to like a cucumber, okay, which is very low calorie and just mostly water. So when I was doing Weight Watchers, was like, I would never go near a banana. I don't want to waste my calories on a banana. I want to
No.
be able to save them so I can have a chocolate chip cookie. And
Hmm.
therein lies the problem.
Yes.
So that's why I'm not happy with diets like Weight Watchers because it it you can fall into that mentality very easily. And yes, someone could say the same thing about macros because if I say you have X number of carbs to eat in a day, you might say, well, I would like to spend them on this, and I don't want to spend them on this more nutrient dense option that's going to
Hmm.
be better for me. Yeah, you could do the same thing.
Yes.
But I
But
think,
I feel like with macros and empowering people to know more about food and what they can do with it, I feel like with some people, I think that when you know more about something, when you understand it, you begin to care more. And then it becomes fun and exciting because you're like, wow, I know why this is like this or why it's important for me to do this. And I don't know why, but when humans know more, I feel like we care more.
oh yeah, yeah. And knowledge is power,
Mhm.
right? So when you really understand your food, you are not going to get tripped up when you have an unexpected dinner at a restaurant or something happens and you're out somewhere and you know what I mean, and you feel like you're off your diet. Well, you don't
Mm-mm.
ever have to be off if you understand food and you understand, you know, what to choose. You
Because you
can,
have the power of the knowledge.
yeah, you know. So that's what this whole pre-diet phase is all about.
Mhm.
Learning. This is the learning phase. And let's learn while food is in abundance.
Yes, because that's where it's most fun.
Right. Because then we're going to get to a point where, okay, we actually start cutting down. And then it's going to get hard because we're going to experience some hunger, you
Mhm.
know? And we want to be prepared for that so that we can handle it and get through it to the other side.
And
You
then
know?
you can reach your goals. That's
Exactly.
the whole point.
Yeah. So that is your pre-diet phase. And in another episode, we will go into the what to do afterwards. Oh,
And
and
it'll
during.
it'll still be fun the whole time because you're taking care of that beautiful body of yours.
Yes. We will see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Bye.